Thank you all for coming. My name is Christopher Smithson. I will be your speaker this evening. Tonight, we will learn about wills and probate records. Where are wills and probate records kept? We'll actually ask questions at the end. If you have any questions, please add them to the chat, and I will answer those at the end. Wills and probate records are kept in the Register of Wills office throughout the different counties in the different states throughout the United States. What type of records are found in the Register of Wills office? Wills, estate records, estate files, distribution, guardian accounts, guardian bonds, orphans court proceedings, inventories, administration accounts, and in some jurisdictions, actual vital records, birth, marriage, and death records. What are types of wills? There's several different types of wills that a person can create. There's holographic wills, which is an original copy written by the individual in its entirety in their handwriting. A mystic will is a will from the French tradition in the United States. That would be Louisiana. Person would go to a notary, like a lawyer, and writes the will in the presence of 2 to 3 witnesses with the notary. An oral will, a non-complicative will, is one that is orally given and later spoken in court. Those that have issues with actually writing, and there are many examples of that actually being done. There's some states here in the United States that do not honor those type of wills. We also have a joint will. These wills are made by 2 or more persons together and signed by both, and sometimes called a conjoint will. Then we have a unviscous will. I may have said that wrong, which is a will in disregard to nature of obligations and of inheritance. Unsolemn will, which is where there's no executor named, an administrator later appointed by the court. And then we also have consuetals. Those are amendments to a will that you're not changing your entire will and recreating it from scratch. You're just making small amendments to it. This is the will of Charles Anderson from that was signed by him in 1739. This was in Baltimore County, Maryland. This is actually what we call a clerk's copy. This is not the original. The originals are actually at the Maryland State Archives for this period of time in the colonial period from at the Maryland State Archives. So this is a clerk copy. So that information provides what the person is, who they're bequeathing stuff to, sometimes where they want their, how they want their remains to be, whether buried or what they're giving people, who their executor was, also who their witnesses were. Sometimes your witnesses could be neighbors, could be family members that are not necessarily in the will. And sometimes you're able to connect the different people together. What does it mean when a person dies intestate? That basically means a person has died without a will. Now, they may have that they never wrote a will, that they may still have a sum of money, but they never actually made their wishes known to in writing. So then it becomes an intestate case, and they have to distribute it among the heirs, regardless if the person wanted the person to have something or not. Sometimes those types of things actually end up in court. What's the difference between an administrator and executor slash executrix? An administrator is administrator of a state. Usually we call a person an administrator if the person did not, in the old days, an administrator or administratrix for a woman, if the person did not have a will. If they had a will, it would be an executor or executrix if it's a woman. The next thing I'm going to show is a series of what we call estate files slash probate records. One of the items I have here is off of Family Search, and that is the probate estate and guardianship files for Maryland from 1796 to 1940. This does not cover all of the Maryland counties. As you see here, several the counties are listed here and the periods of time. There's a wide variety of items inside these files. What had happened was Family Search came here to Maryland and digitized either via the Maryland archives or the actual repositories where they digitized the actual estate files, everything that was in the file. So there could be a copy of the person's original will, copy of administration accounts, copies of every single document that was put in the file. Now, there may be things missing out of the file, but that's what was left at the time when they were digitizing the information. This is the site that you would come to if you went to that link. You could either key search the person's name in there, or you could hit the browse all button with the million and some images. And what that brings you to is another site, part of the page where it breaks down by county. You click on a county that is there, and then you can click on a person's last name and then go from there. What I chose was a gentleman by the name of Benjamin Hanson from Kent County. And what we have there is there's 38 images in that file. They're actually the cover sheet, without the cover sheet, so there's 37 images. And in his file, I did not include it, but what we have is his original will is in there. There's also the administration account papers. His will was about 10 pages long, so it was pretty thick. And of course, it was handwritten, so your paper, it took him a while to write it. So, and there was miscellaneous other papers within there as well. So, so you actually get to see the original will that the person actually wrote and their actual signature, not just and it's not a clerk's copy. The next item I have here was in the petition book in Warren County, New Jersey. And what that is the final administration account of a gentleman by the name of William Hamlin. And in these type of accounts, you have the information where the person provides who's basically coming forth and how things are being billed, people claiming money out of the state, how it was going out, how much is left. Sometimes it'll tell you who's being paid for example, the coffin, wide variety of things, sometimes the newspaper, different people around the town that are being paid for different services, maybe a doctor, maybe a lawyer. Sometimes you're able to tell at the end with the information as towards once the money is left over, if there is any, how it's distributed to the heirs. The next item is a distribution, and this basically occurs only if there is money left over at the end after everything is paid for. Sometimes this goes to the heirs, sometimes this goes to what we call the legatees. The legatees may actually be other individuals who would benefit from the funds, and it may not be a relative, it may be a business person that was owed money from the state as well. And in some cases, some areas, they don't have distribution books. Sometimes this is actually kept at the end of an administration account. Sometimes it's kept in other areas too. With each jurisdiction has their own way of labeling the information. The next item is a guardian account. A guardian account is an item where a person has died and they're left minor children. What happens then is the child is then placed with someone to have care. That person then has to come to court and explain the benefits of how their expenditures are done to the court. Sometimes it'll say that the person is the minor child of so-and-so. Doesn't mean that both parents have died. It means that at least one of them has died. Sometimes these cases go for several years. Usually it's up until they're in their late teens and no further than that. Sometimes you may only get this mention of them one time in the different records. Sometimes it may be more than once. And what they're paying for there, what they're getting reimbursement for is their clothing, their bedding, their boarding, their school books, or the types of things that they're basically charging. And usually this comes out of the estate of the individual's parent. The next item is what we call an orphan's court proceedings. Now, different jurisdictions do different writing. They do this similar writing in Pennsylvania, as well as other areas as well. And this is more like the proceedings of the orphan's court, more like a general ledger of what goes on from one day to the next of the way that the judges of the orphan's court did the daily activities during that day. The next item you would find in a registered wills office is what we call an inventory. And this is the beginning inventory of a gentleman by the name of William Crooks, who was here in Harford County. This was one of the original ones, so this is from about 1774. And what we're able to tell here is this is the inventory of all of Mr. Crook's property. Sometimes you're able to tell what type of occupation the individual has by the types of materials that the person left. For example, if he has a lot of tools, blacksmithing tools that would be used as a blacksmith, one can assume more than likely he was a blacksmith. So there's a wide variety of finding that information within an inventory of what the person actually done for a living. Another item is an administration account. Sometimes administration accounts can go on for several years, especially if there's a lot of disputing going on. In some cases, these can go in for 10 years. I've seen them even as far as 20 years as well. These items basically hold information as towards their how things were paid for, and sometimes they're very descriptive of the information, who was getting what, and the reasons why. And another item, like I had said before, was vital records. And what this is a marriage record in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We do not do that here in Maryland with vital records. They do that in Pennsylvania. This was in the orphans court up there in Lancaster County. They actually provide not only the bride and groom, they also ask for parents' information as well, so that the whole one left side of the page provides a lot of information as well. Another item is a death record. This was also in the Register of Wills. This is actually in Berks County, Pennsylvania. So it provides a lot of information. In today's standing of people's estates, the Register of Wills would have also a copy of the person's death certificate. Now, that in itself would stay in the file, but it would not, that would not be available to the for public viewing, but they would actually have a copy of it in the actual file for someone that would have died today. This is a list of the different states that is available on the Random Acts of Genealogy Kindness. Now, this part of this site may have changed a little bit from this link, but this provides a list of the different burnt counties throughout the United States and what counties have burned, what records are still there, and it'll explain what whether or not that the probate records have been destroyed or what's left. So you want to check the different jurisdictions to see if the information is still there or not. In this day and age, we tend to look on online sources, especially with things that are going on around the world with the pandemic and stuff. How can I do stuff from home? One of the things is Ancestry provides a lot of digital records with wills and probate with their different with the different states. The way to access that information is you go to ancestry.com, click on search. You then go to card catalog. When you go to card catalog, there will be a text box on your left-hand side, and you type in, for example, Pennsylvania wills, and then it will have a, it'll come up with a separate page, and then it allows you on the right-hand side, after you click on that, you can either do a text search looking for a person's name, or you can do a drop down on the right side and browse through a certain county to figure out what information that they have on their database. Another item, website, of course, is Family Search. How to access that information is you go to search, you go to catalog. And when you go to catalog, there will be an option for search by place. And all you have to do is type in, for example, say it's York County, Pennsylvania. You just have to type in York, and you look down the scroll of the number of the names, and you look for United States backslash Pennsylvania backslash York. And then a separate screen will come up, and you go all the way down to the bottom, and there will be a link for probate records, and then you can see what stuff is digitized. Some stuff you're able to get online from the comfort of your home. Other things you can go to a family history hub. For those that are local, the Harford County Public Library is a family history hub. You can go there and pull information. You do not have to go directly to the Bel Air Library. You can go to one of the facility branches throughout the county. And in some cases, things are not available that way. You actually have to go to a family history center. And the other ways is the state of Maryland through the Register of Wills office. For those of you looking for modern estate files, you can order these items off of their website under the Pacific counties. And they do charge 50 cents a page besides a processing fee. They have a lot of the modern stuff on there, all the recent stuff. They also have some old stuff as well. So it's really depend on the Pacific county or not. The other thing you want to look at, if you're looking at other counties throughout the United States, you want to visit their websites to see if they have any indexes for their Register of Wills office, or whether you have to email them or call them or whatever. When you're doing the type of research and you're having to send it places you can't go there in person, what you're asking just for a will, you may not be getting everything. So what I tend to say that I need is, you want a copy, if they have the whole person's file, you want a copy of their probate file. So that means everything that was recorded, like I shown before, all the different pieces of paper, because there may be one little piece of paper in there that basically fixes a brick wall that you may have. Or, for example, they may send you a transcript of a will and not the original. And what you need is the original. There may have been an error written in the transcript. So you always want to consult the originals as well. For those of you that may be doing overseas research, I'm going to briefly touch on the United Kingdom for a moment. One of the biggest places right now to order stuff, if you have any ancestors in the United Kingdom, it's a National Archives in Kew outside of London. And right now they have wills going from 1384 to 1858. And a lot of these items are digitized. Because of COVID right now, you can actually download these things after you register. You can download them for free. You also want to check Family Search Wiki for English records, English probate records. Some different repositories, family centers in archives in around England, Wales, and Scotland have the records in specific local locations rather than a larger location like the National Archives. So if it's not in one jurisdiction, you want to look at the other ones as well. There's also stuff available on Ancestry with the English probate records in 2 locations. Also, if you have ancestors that may have done a lot of back and forth traveling between England and in America during the 17th, 18th, and early 19th century. There was several books done by Peter Wilson Coldham, and those books are available for purchase. You can get those on Amazon. There's a lot of interesting people that left wills that are not only recorded over there, but sometimes they're also recorded over here as well. And what I'll do is I'll stop right now and for a moment and look at the questions. Okay, this is from Dr. Castoro. What makes a person an orphan according to the court? Basically, a person that one person has either died, either one of the parents have died, or basically they've the person has no living relatives, or maybe they were like an orphanage where they have to have someone there. Somebody's been asked by the court to take care of the person because they're a minor. And the second question is, currently there is an election for the position of Register of Wills. Why is it a sought after position? Probably one of the things is with the Register of Wills office, it's been an elected position for here in Norfolk County as well as other jurisdictions for quite a while, many years. And it's not a position that very many people like to do. It's a 4-year position that the Register of Will has, and then they're elected every 4 years. Same time when we have, when you're here in Maryland, when we're electing a governor, we're also, like here in Harford County, we also elect the Register of Wills and the sheriff as well. So in the nearly 250 years of Harford County, probably one of the more interesting ones of the Register of Wills that we had was the first one we ever had, John George Bradford. And of course, he was Register of Wills and he never wrote a will. One of the other things that we know what happened with him, he actually died while he was in service. So we do know through the records that a lot of things during his administration had to be re-recorded because they were not finalized when he died. So his was one of the interesting ones that we've had in the county. So it's a position that not very many people go after. But then sometimes you have, I remember reading about the election of 1913 when my great-great-grandfather here in Harford County ran for Register of Wills, and he, and it was several Republicans and only a few Democrats running, and he was like smack in the middle. And of course, one of the other gentlemen ended up winning, but it was one of the things where back then it was a hot commodity. Now it's kind of like, it's not what it used to be. Okay, this question is from Dan. For colonial Harford County records towards the turn of the 18th century, where would the best place to obtain a full probate between the state archives and Family Search? Does Family Search have most uploaded public access? In order to get the probate records, the ones that have survived for Harford County, and it has not disappeared. I'm going to switch glasses because have not disappeared out of the Register of Wills office in the last 250 years that some lawyer has walked off with, is all the original files have been sent to Annapolis to the state archives. They're in a separate collection. So you need to have the estate file number in order to pull that information. On Family Search, there is what we call a book called The Keys to Administration, which is every single estate file issued with every single document that was issued under that person. The first item is their estate file number, the deceased person's name, their administrator or executor, and then every single document that was issued, what book it was recorded in by the clerk. So you need to have that case number in order to find it. That doesn't mean that it's still there. Those are in boxes at the archives, which you have to go down there and pull, or they will charge you a fee by mail to scan it and copy it for you. Now they're digitizing it and sending it to you by mail. These are not on Family Search at all. Now, several years ago, we got the original wills that a person wrote that were sent to, that were brought to the Register of Wills. Those were boxed up and sent to the state archives. They may be actually at the state archives now, or they may be in one of the warehouses. Those were filed by the estate file number, so you need that as well in order to find those. Those are in a separate collection, and I don't have that. I'd have to look up the number for you, but those could be very valuable, especially if words are left out, especially if you're trying to figure out how a person actually signed their name, whether they made their mark, whether they hand wrote their name, to see if it's, for example, a person named William Smith. You may have 3 or 4 William Smiths walking around the county at the same time. Well, which one wrote the will? Okay. Next question. When doing genealogical research, what content would you like to find in a will? If you know someone had 5 children known to be living when their parent died, but only 3 are named in a will, what do you conclude about this? In some cases, a person can be very forthcoming in naming all their children. However, there is that one who only names 3 of the 5 that they had. Now, could be that 2 of them have died. It could be that 2 of them, they basically, he was not very happy with and decided to leave them out. Or he's turned around and left them $1 or left them something prior to their death, and that's why they're not named. So in this type of case, what I would do is you try to obtain the entire estate file, because it's more than likely that that individual child that is not named in the will may be buying stuff out of the estate. So, so you want to check those records as well to see if the person appears in there. So then you can basically build a case saying that here's the heirs, but then you also have this person buying stuff out of the state with the same last name, and this is the only family living in that general area. You can also use other types of records. For example, if there's any property, sometimes the cases, the states end up in what we call equity court, where they're disputing over property in a will, or who the heirs were, or uh, that sort of thing. So one may show up in that. Also, if they do not agree with that, a case will then go to the Chancery Court, which is the state level, and then there's further stuff written about it as well. Our equity cases are now at the state archives. The indexes are still at the courthouse in the public service area, which you have to sign in to get to. And right now it's kind of tricky to get in there just to get a case number, because you need the case number in order to pull the actual case at the archives. All right, next question. Probate record for 1906. My great-grandfather died and the spouse died also, and there were 3 boys. Where can I go find more information? Who took care of the 3 boys? I have proceedings index. Okay. So basically what you have there is you have the proceedings index, and when you go to the actual book, those type of proceedings are just like, could be like a 1-liner, 2-liner, 3-liner type of thing. It's just it's not an actual document per se. So those other items, you still want to look at the guardian accounts. You still want to look at the also the guardian bonds. The guardian bonds are basically the person has been bonded to take care of a minor person. So it doesn't mean that the stuff is there. It could be that the one thing was filled out and nothing else was done. Sometimes it's only named once, and the person may be 9, 10 years old, and that's the only time it appears. Or the stuff is walked off. And especially in Baltimore, stuff is walked off. All right, the next item is publication. How can I find out whether the place that I'm looking for has probate records? I have 2 listed here, 2 items, books here. One's called Courthouse Indexes, illustrated by Christine Rose, and United States Court Records, Cities, Counties, States, and Federal Government by Ann Staley. And those items can basically tell you what records are available for that specific jurisdiction, what has survived, what has been burned. Also, another thing was I believe the 11th edition was the last one of the genealogical, the genealogical helper by Everton. I'm sorry, the handy book was 11th edition. And that book also has the similar type of information in it as well. Out of the 30 years that I've done research, I have seen all different types of things happen when looking at wills and probate. And one of the things that stuck to mind in the last 30 years that has always bothered me was a depositions that were filed in a case in the journal entries accounts here in Harford County regarding the will of a lady named Mary Gilbert. And this was actually one of my ancestors. And in the journal entries accounts are depositions by her family members, by her grandchildren, by her children, by other members of the family. Basically, some are saying that she was all there, other ones saying she had no clue who they were. And one of the family members had basically was the administrator and had gone and had her create a will and walked in another room, and witnesses signed it. Some of them, they said that they signed it in front of her. Other ones said they signed it in another room. So to this day, we have never found a will. We have never found an estate. And this was over 200 years ago. So it's these type of written accounts that are priceless, especially when they're basically arguing back and forth about this. Now, what I don't find is the outcome of what the judges at Orphans Court said about this. What we do find is, besides family relationships, one of them actually turned around and said what her maiden name was, and said that her husband, who her husband was, who the different family members were, and then actually said her maiden name. So you never know what you're going to find in some of these items as well. So the thing is, make sure you flip. Do not leave any stones unturned. Make sure you turn them all over. And when you think you've looked at everything, more than likely there's something still there. Anybody else have any questions? I thank you all for attending this evening. Please join us with our next lecture, which will be in, I believe, February. And that will be by Mary Swears. And we have one final question. My ancestor, John Stokes, married a Susanna Wells, seems to have been a prominent citizen. I found many documents on him can be traced to Baltimore County as early as 1699. However, I'm stuck. I cannot find out anything about his parents or siblings or where he came from. Thought suspected could come from England, but not proven. Is there anything I can do to find his origins? One of the items, and this was by I guess Teresa. What I would suggest you do is you start looking at laying out every piece of evidence that you have on him. One thing that I would focus on is, if the gentleman had property, what is he calling the names of the property? Sometimes the individuals in the colonial period tend to leave clues in the naming of their property, of their origins. For example, one of my ancestors who was here, named James Phillips, he turned around and named one of his properties Sedgley. Well, that was the name of the town where he was born in England, as well as where he lived for the earlier part of his life. Also names it for different other things. So that would be one place that I would start. Also, you want to look at, if you're looking for early immigration here in Maryland, you want to look at Carson Gibbs' book, which prior to that was a book by Gus Scortus, which Carson Gibb later revised. That dealt with immigration in the colonial period here in Maryland. That information was taken from a lot from patent records and other means. Those are available online through the Maryland archives. Some of those you actually have to go there and pull because they're not digitized. As towards that would talk about basically who was transporting different people back and forth and listing them. And then that individual that was transporting them would end up getting property. You also want to look at some of Peter Wilson Coldham's books as well on different immigration to and from England as well. I thank you all for attending tonight, and I hope you have a good evening.